Has teaching saved your career as an artist?
That's such an interesting question. Yes. I think if I hadn't started teaching, I might not still be in this life. I get so much from it. I just taught acting class yesterday, and it's just incredible to have this sort of oasis, this place to go in and just focus on the work and not have to worry about the business and the strike and everything else that's going on in the world, and just to be able to like get in a black box theater and talk about acting is so inspiring to me. So yeah, I don't think I've ever thought of it that way, but I think it really has saved my career.
So it sounds like it also feeds you in other ways, not just money-wise, of course, but feeds you emotionally and maybe spiritually.
And so much of directing in this life, as you well know, is trying to get financing for the next project. So I'm not working with actors on a daily basis. So having teaching, I don't even think of it as a day job, but having teaching in my life, I'm getting to work with actors all the time, and I'm trying to solve problems and figure out how to make a scene work. And I try to create an atmosphere in my classes the same way I create an atmosphere on my sets, of just creating this place where actors can be relaxed and play and solve problems and try things. So I think it's really similar, and it's really good practice. And I've been teaching for so long now that I'm excited to get back on a set with all this teaching experience. I think it'll be interesting just to see how my directing has changed from the teaching.
Do you ever envision that there's a 19 or 20-year-old Tom in the audience that you would be teaching? Do you ever see, I've realized that's so, quote, meta or whatever, but right. Like, that you're like, if you came in, if there was a time machine and you actually came in and you're mentoring a slightly younger Tom, what would you tell him? Or maybe you would just let him do his thing. You wouldn't try to control anything, make him think anything.
So interesting to think about. Yeah, I think I would just do what I do with young actors and encourage him and create a safe space for him to feel comfortable and work. And some of the teachers that I studied with in New York created that for me. People like Wynn Handman and Jane Hoffmann. And it's interesting, I'm reading this new book on the method by Isaac Butler. I don't know if you've read it, but you should check it out. It's incredible. And all of sort of the teachers that I studied with in New York are kind of direct descendants from these, the group theater people. And, my teacher studied with Sanford Meisner and Bobby Lewis and all these people. So it's exciting just to feel that lineage and feel like, oh, I'm a part of something, So, yeah. So I think, I would encourage him and tell him to keep working. That's what I see with a lot of young actors. They just need to do it, because it's not like being a musician where you can just like play in your basement by yourself. You got to be in community, and you have to be able to play with somebody and to work.
Well, and even with a musician, don't you have to get yourself booked at clubs or,
yeah, sure,
community events or whatever?
Yeah. But at least they can just like pick up a guitar and play, whereas actors kind of need another actor at least.
What do most artists get wrong about staying sharp between projects?
I think one thing I notice is sometimes actors think if I'm doing a lot of self-tapes, that's going to keep me sharp. But I think that's a totally different muscle. So I think, yes, you have to do that stuff, and you have to do self-tapes and do business stuff. But I think you also have to be in a creative space where you can just focus on your craft and your art and your work, aside from trying to get a job. But I think sometimes people think like, well, I made 4 self-tapes this week, so, I don't have to, work on my craft. But it is very different. As actors and writers and creative people, that gets back to that idea of balance. We have to, work on ourselves to be free in our work, because a lot of people will have their own sort of personal baggage and stuff that kind of gets in the way and doesn't allow them to play certain characters or be open or free in their work. So, yeah.
What are some things that can help us get free, aside from, maybe meditation or yoga? Are there other things that...
Those are going to be my first
two.
two.
Okay, all right.
But anything, exercise, being social. It's funny, a lot of my private clients have been wanting to work on listening in their acting. And I've been telling them, well, practice that. You can practice that in your life. You practice that when you're out for coffee with somebody. You can really listen, because I think a lot of times we lead these lives that are so chaotic, and then all of a sudden we want to sit down in our acting work, and now I'm going to listen, even though I wasn't listening the rest of my day, So I think that there are ways to work on that stuff in your life as well.
And putting the phone down.
Exactly. Yeah.
Add coffee with someone.
No, yeah. I think the devices, like having boundaries with that is really crucial. I try to not go to it right in the morning and then have a cutoff at night. And, I think just doing that is really profound. But yeah, you got to limit that stuff, or else it just, gets inside your brain and you're not able to be present and, listen and work with someone.
Yeah, I see it very difficult it seems like it's on a spectrum for some people.
Mm-hmm.
I see people driving that I can just tell they cannot stay off that phone, and then others. I've seen interesting people at bus stops with books, paperbacks.
That's nice.
And I was like, wow, that's really cool. That must be some type of resurgence that's coming back. I don't know.
There was something I saw on Instagram, but it was about hot guys reading on the subway or something. So they would take pictures of these like handsome guys like reading on the subway. So yeah.
Oh, I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
That's great. That's really funny. Tom, we have a quote from, I believe it's Uta Hagen, and it was on your Facebook page for Scene Study LA. Mm-hmm. And the quote is, "Talent alone is not enough. Character and ethics, a point of view about the world in which you live, and an education can and must be acquired and developed."
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I love Uta Hagen. She's so great. If you haven't seen, there is a masterclass of hers on YouTube. It's like a 2-hour class of hers that you can watch. It's fascinating. But yeah, I think that gets back to being like a well-rounded person in the world is part of the work. I think I see this all the time with actors that I work with, and, they get so obsessed with acting and being a good actor that they kind of forget to live the rest of their life. And, so I think that's sort of what the artist way is about, taking yourself on an artist date, going to museums, and finding the balance of an education, of sort of having fun in your life and enjoying your life, as well as like this business can get so much about like, I got to get the next job and get so obsessed, but we have to find that balance. And so I think that is probably what Uta was getting at.
And then for better or worse, it sounds like knowing about global situations, politics, as toxic as it may be sometimes, but to know that, especially if you're going to play a character.
Yeah.
That's...
Yeah. Well, I think sometimes that can be what's beautiful about being an actor is that, I'm sure Cillian Murphy playing Oppenheimer, having to learn all about the history and it's like as actors, we get to like do that and, let the research take you down these rabbit holes and learn something that you didn't know before. And I think that's kind of the beauty of being an actor. And, you know, I do that a lot in writing too. If I'm writing about a subject that I don't know a lot about, you know, getting kind of lost in that is part of the fun of it too.
Is there a time period you wish you had been born in other than, you know, our current world?
That is so funny. I'd like to have a time machine and just kind of drop in and check out all these, you know, the 20s and the 50s and 60s and, you know, all these sort of decades that I missed. But I don't know that I'd want to have to pick one and be stuck there. I kind of like the one I'm in.
Thank you for watching the video all the way to the end. Here is a complimentary question from our book Story Questions.